feel free to come up here and ask questions of our panel. We're going to keep it brief because we're trying to catch up today. So, but maybe I can start things off because it's like the tragedy of the commons. We all want to do things that benefit ourselves. So maybe just to the panelists, what are your ideas on trying to get people to come to the table and really collaborate on some of the solutions that Stephen brought about and some of the issues that Kelly brought up and Rachel. So maybe you can give your quick opinion on that, because in the end, what ends up in my pocket and in my bank account? That's what people really think about. It's a social issue. So,
go ahead.
No, okay. Wow, that's a big question. I think, over and over again, we see the breakdown of consumers, right? So you've got the 25% that really care about the environment, that want to do the right thing. You've got the 50% that are not going to waver. It all depends on cost and convenience, and then the 25% that don't really care. So if we're going to try to drive change, we need to be mindful that it's, we can't just consider the 25%, but we've got to have the whole spectrum. So in terms of behaviors, and I think why I mentioned, some of the policy drivers, because we'll see some people trying to grasp at things that we haven't really had on their agenda before. So again, I think, we've talked about systemic behavior change. We talk about a shift in kind of a paradigm shift in the way we think, but it really has to be driven by various factors, not just the environmental kind of change that we see, but kind of political factors, the economic factors. All those incentives need to be there, and that's going to, again, to your point, require a lot of collaboration, a lot of rethink of how we approach those issues.
So I'll go next. So I didn't really say that much about the organization that I work with. We're Sustainable Packaging Coalition. We're a membership group of about 200 companies from all across the packaging supply chain. So material manufacturers and packaging producers, and then also the brands and retailers. And then we have some academia and consultancies. And we host 2 conferences every year where we try to bring everyone together in the same room to hash through these issues and come up with tools and projects that can help in a collaborative spirit. And the How to Recycle label was a project of collaboration. So all the brands years ago, they said, this is anarchy, what's happening with all the recycling labels on packaging. Everyone's saying different things. There's a lot of greenwashing. It's not even accurate. Companies don't have data to substantiate their recyclability claims. So we need to come up with this project together. So that was one success story of collaboration. And we have so many other projects. So one that we're working on right now is called Applying Systems Thinking to Recycling. So ASTRIX is the acronym. And it's really about taking a systems thinking approach to everything that's wrong with recycling. You go to one place, it's different from another place, and there's inconsistencies. And so we're trying to identify all the opportunities there. So that's a collaborative project. So there are specific projects that people can get involved in. But I think recycling is kind of like a gateway drug to people. It's easy for people to understand. Consumers love it, and so if you have if companies can be a part of something like how to recycle, it's such low-hanging fruit if you think about it. Once people start to think about recycling, then it's easier to think about some of these other issues like carbon impacts. So that's one thing. But Rachel, you mentioned a paradigm shift, and I think that that there definitely needs to be one. So take Amazon, for example. They've been a black box about sustainability in packaging for years, and just recently, just this year, they've started to speak publicly about their strategies for sustainable packaging with e-commerce. So they joined our organization, and they spoke at our conference in Arizona last month about what they're doing in sustainability, and I think that's really, really, really helping. Because instead of every company just going their own way and trying to do everything in their own universe because they're afraid that their competitors might catch on to things, it really strengthens the whole industry to come together, because then you can piggyback off of each other's ideas. So I think that the Amazon CEO letter to shareholders is a really good read if anyone wants to read it, that came out for 2017. And he talks about how coming together will make us stronger than just doing it alone. So they're encouraging brands to collaborate with them in new ways that they've never done. So they're doing stuff with their e-commerce packaging to optimize that with specific brands. So there's a lot of opportunities there. People just, I agree that with what Stephen said, cultural, socioeconomic is the biggest hurdle.
Comment. You
well,
said a lot, and it was very spirited. Too.
Companies will not collaborate unless it's in their best interests. Companies need to be motivated towards finding those interests. And I would suggest that regulation is necessary. And this province right now is looking at new regulatory framework, which I think should provide, I'm hoping, provide some levels of accountability, some levels of transparency, and some performance targets that companies will go, oh, we need to collaborate in order to meet that, in order to do that. So my answer is regulation. I didn't think you wanted that. But.
Yeah, go ahead.
Being a former attorney, I have a lot of opinions about the law, and one of the things that I realized is that so many laws are poorly designed, and they don't always accomplish what they seek to accomplish. And so I know in Canada you guys have EPR, and it's great that it's this funding mechanism. Yeah, but so it's great to have that money to build the recycling infrastructure, but it doesn't always, at least in my limited knowledge of it, it doesn't always impact the design. It doesn't influence the design of packaging as much, and that's something that the How to Recycle label can do. So I think it's a multifaceted approach. So it should be really thoughtful, and they should work with industry to craft regulation that's the most thoughtful, I think.
That is an interesting response. I can tell you industry has asked for regulations in the past, and in fact, the Blue Box funding program, I remember the group I work for, Corporations Supporting Recycling, going to the government, working with municipalities, asking for regulations to get all of industry involved. But as Kelly said, I think collaboration on having the proper regulation that motivates in the proper way is needed. We have a question here, and then Armagon has one question, and then we're going to get the rest of the program going. Go ahead, sir, and introduce yourself and your organization.
All right, hi, so my name is Lucas. I'm taking the Master's in Local Economic Development, and so I'm focusing my thesis on the circular economy with Steve. And I'm happy that you touched on regulation because, throughout the presentation you talked about cultural shifts and political shifts. And we live in a context of an economy that puts the rights of the consumer first. And whatever the consumer, if that's what they want and they're willing to pay for it, then if they want to get a 24-pack of water up the stairs by a little drone, then, that's what they want. And we don't want government to, interfere in their rights. But maybe we don't want that. Maybe we don't need the Toric little cup holders. And you had that graph from the steel to the new Starbucks. So how does the life cycle assessment maybe can help governments to see, okay, this is all that's going on in the economy with, let's say, the coffee producers, but maybe the best solution is not innovation in plastic recycling. Maybe the best solution is having bulk coffee at the local store and then have people grind it and have a recycled paper bag and take it home. And I'm sorry if your consumers cannot have the little Toric thing, but that's, if they want it, maybe tax them to the extent that they cannot have it anymore.
A lot of policy mechanisms to try to, find ways to support the interests of the consumers, but also understanding the functions of EPR. So within our own organization, we do collaborate with members, and there is obviously differences of opinion on managing materials. We do talk about bulk packaging, we talk about food packaging. We did a life cycle assessment on single serve packaging and the kind of misunderstanding with the environmental impacts, because everyone, again, sees a package, they don't see the entire production that goes into that. So whereas, that study said, if you waste a minimum of 4% of coffee, depending on which system you use, I mean, really, sometimes a single serve system can actually come out as a net positive. So there's so many aspects, and there's so many different ways that you can kind of spin it. But I appreciate your point in terms of using some kind of science or mechanism to inform policy. I think that's critical. And we've seen some success story. Well, I don't say success stories, it's definitely controversial, but allowing, if industry is going to pay for it, there's an absolute incentive for them to dictate or at least have a say on how their materials are going to be managed, and we've seen that in BC. So it should be very interesting in how it's rolled out in Ontario, and again, every different geography and cultural differences are going to shift on how those policies are going to be formed.
Thank you for your question. Armagon Alhag asked me if he could ask a question, and then Armagon, I'll be asking you to come up here to introduce our next guest.
No problem. My question is for Stephen Young. Stephen, you have mentioned the term circularity as compared to circular economy. Is there any technical difference when a social scientist is viewing the concept in comparison with an engineer?
These concepts are still developing. These terms are still developing. We have right now, as I was saying, we've probably got 10 or 15 journals that this year are publishing special issues on circular economy. And the bio-based people want to emphasize bio-based, and the resource conservation recovery want to emphasize recycling, and the cleaner production people want to represent lower toxicity and cleaner production, and the industrial ecology people want to see larger, bigger policy perceptions, and then the product design, industrial design people want to focus more. So, and then there's the life cycle assessment journal. So it's actually quite a lovely Wild West right now in the world of academia, as we simultaneously are chasing new pockets of funding because, lots of government agencies, looking at the agenda, are setting up pots to support these new buzzwords of circular economy or whatever. And so there's grants that are being written, there's special issues, so it's kind of fun. And academic names are trying to put a stake in it and say, this is what it is. And even to split it between natural and social sciences, I think is too subtle.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Armagon. So I want you to join me in thanking our panelists today for setting up the discussion. It's been spirited. It's given you something to think about for the rest of the day, including what our keynote will be speaking about. So thank you very much.